She is not.
She knows what time it is. Just gotta talk.
And that's on the
Let's start the recording. What is there, zoning meeting going on tonight?
Yes.
Yeah, is there? Okay, I'd like to put the regular scheduled January 10th meeting in session. Please join for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Again, public input, we have some strangers here. Bob K's with us. Say, John, how are you? Paula, is there anything you want to add, or you're here for the presentation? Okay, great.
They're my,
Your backup? What do you need, muscle?
Absolutely.
Listen, you don't have to worry about me.
My
Maybe John,
bodyguards, you
maybe
know?
John, but don't. Okay, great, good to see you both. And Paul, it's always good to see you. And Bobby's here for a presentation also. Any correspondence, Mary? Nothing came in? Okay, great. All right, the fourth thing on the agenda is election of officers for the year 23. So does anybody like to make a motion for chair? We'll do that one first.
I'd like to make a motion to elect Nick Ellis as chairman.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any other nominations? I will make a nomination. I'm sorry, I will make a motion that we close nominations. How's that?
Sounds good.
You almost got your name.
Thought you were gonna be nominated.
All right, all in favor on Nick Ellis being chair for this year?
Aye.
Let the record show unanimous. Thank you for everybody's support. Appreciate that. Vice chair, is anybody like to make a motion for vice chair?
I'd like to make a motion that we elect Cynthia McCorkindale for vice chair for the year 2023.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Okay, is there any other nominations for vice chair?
Can you
Bob, was that-
actually,
You make it-
Can-
oh,
can you be nominated in absentia? Is that a thing?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Can she be nominated even though she's not present?
Absolutely.
Oh, sure. Why, yeah, she's a member of this board. I would not think there's a problem with that.
Okay, but does Cynthia want to be vice chair? She seems to be doing a lot of other stuff currently.
Fair question.
Fair question. I did talk to her. She is interested. But fair question, Dee, definitely.
Should we take a really brief recess and look that up? If a member can be nominated, I think they can, but
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue.
Okay.
The reason usually to show up to meetings, so you don't get
so
nominated.
yeah.
Again, just for, not to defend Cynthia, but I know she's down settling in a state. She had a sister pass away in Virginia. So she is out of town, but she was supposed to be here at tonight's meeting. So, Mary, you're still watching, right?
I am.
All
Is
right,
there a process? I don't remember the last times that we've done this, but do you have to actually accept the nomination or accept the position if you're voted into it?
I don't believe so. If everybody's not comfortable, we can table that until next meeting if you'd like.
No, I'm fine. I'm just trying to remember the process because I thought I remembered like when Bob was nominated and elected chairperson, he had to accept it.
Right. That's usually when you get somebody not watching, give them a job when they're not here. Is everybody comfortable with that or?
I think that the fact that I put the motion out in a second, and I think we should vote on it. And if there's a discrepancy in her wanting to do it or not do it, then we could re-entertain it at the next meeting.
Okay, so I'd make a motion that we close nominations.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. So again, we have one motion for Cynthia. All in favor of Cynthia being vice chair? Can everybody just raise their hands?
Aye.
3 against 3.
Well, that might be a problem.
Sorry, can I say the vote again?
I'm
please?
sorry, yeah. So we're.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the ayes.
The ayes, you gotta call for the nays
Yep.
and the
Yep.
abstentions.
And then just see if you got a nay, Nick, because I.
And the nay.
And then
D, did you vote? I'm sorry.
No, I vote nay on Cynthia.
Okay, yep.
so 2 nay.
Well, then that gets a 3-2 vote with just a present.
Is that your vote, present?
I'm abstaining. Yeah.
Abstaining? Okay. I hate to see it go that way. Okay, so let the record show us 3-2 with 1 abstention. Thank you for that. Thank you for your support. Number 5, consideration of December 13th regular meeting. You have the minutes prepared by Mary. Anybody have any discussions? Anybody like
I'll
to
make a motion, and then if anybody has anything to add or delete. So I make a motion that we accept the meetings from our regular December 13th, 2022 meeting.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any discussions here? Robert, spell check. Got anything?
I have to abstain.
Yes, thank you. And everybody else was here, right? So is there anything else anybody saw in the minutes? All in favor on the minutes of December 13th, 2022?
Aye.
Aye. And you were not
Yeah, I
here?
just noticed.
Oh, okay.
something. So was it the last minute that I made the motion to accept the minutes, but I realized I had not been at the previous meeting,
Oh, I remember that.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I think we just reconsidered, somebody else made the motion. That's not reflected in these minutes.
Right, but
So-
who, are you talking about for the special meeting or there was a
This
regular
is
meeting?
was this the regular meeting?
Again,
It would have been the regular meeting, right?
so that was
Regular
November
meeting.
8th.
Oh, wait.
And John made the
Oh, yeah,
motion.
we're good.
Yep,
Yep.
yep,
Thank
we're
you.
okay.
I'm looking at the wrong spot. I knew I messed it up. So I'm in favor. Aye.
Okay, all, everybody else is good? Let the record show.
And Mary, I
With
just
one
need-
abstention. Yes, thanks, Bob.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, moving right along. And Brad, you want me to slow down a little bit? Are you okay? You good? I moved kind of things around. Oh, You still got your earache, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get the little tubes put in or?
No, not yet.
All right, number 6, consideration of tax relief for the elderly. And we've got some elderly guys here. This is kind of nice. So, Paula, are you presenting and then you
Yeah,
back up?
Well, we all are, and John's gonna start us off. with it.
I'm
Excuse
done.
me, Third Birthday, I apologize.
No problem.
I'm John Sarber, and as of last year, Bob and I are sharing the duties as a tax benefit coordinator on the town, a part-time position. As most of you know, there is a homeowners program that runs every year for applications from February 1st to May 15th. And qualifying applicants get a reduction in their property tax. So the state each year, the Office of Policy and Management up at the state publishes a grid of 5 brackets. And this year, as you undoubtedly know, with the impact in 2022 of the Social Security increase, there were some large increases in the bracket that the brackets the state identified. In your meeting packet, there is the letter that comes out from the state. Each year, we traditionally bring that to the Board of Finance. It's for information. There's no action required on your part for the state brackets. Traditionally, there's been a 6th income bracket that the town of Bethel sets. For historic reference, the limit that the town of Bethel has had in place as the one that they have set has not changed since 2010. It has remained constant all those years at 48,000. This year, we had the unusual event that the highest state bracket that you can see from your sheet is now 49.1. So it eclipses the traditional town of Bethel bracket that has been in existence since 2010. Following discussions with Marty Lawler, where we considered a number of factors, we made the decision that we would not have a separate Bethel bracket as the highest income. Instead, we would adopt the state identified bracket of 49,000, which provides an increase of about $1,100 in the limit for people at that upper bracket versus last year, due to the action that the state has already taken. Unless you have any questions, neither of those require any action because we're not changing the town ordinance for the Bethel portion. And the state pieces are what comes down from the state. Now, there were discussions in the past about some revisions to the program, and after discussions with Marty, I think some of those need to be revisited. And we wanted to make sure that there was ample time in the year to be able to do those and implement those in the future.
So you don't need anything from us tonight? You're
We
just
don't need anything
notifying
other
us
than
with this?
Your information.
Giving you the information.
Okay.
And that's what also is in the packet is the cost of local benefits throughout the year, so.
And I see how many qualified applicants, how many people apply for it that don't qualify for the program? That means they make too much income, right?
That's on the bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry. did I
Total
miss-
applied is 252, and 45 of those 252 did not
I see.
qualify this past
Thank you,
year.
Paul. I see that now.
Majority of those that did not qualify were over income. In case you're wondering, they ranged all the way from marginally over the income limit of 48 last year up to 86. And there were a couple that just called on the phone and said, hey, I'm at 125. Do it.
Yeah.
I have one question. The state moved their brackets up. What was the maximum last year for the state of Connecticut before they gave the inflation or whatever number increase bracket?
Last year.
How far was it under our
46,000.
bracket? 48,
46,000.
What is it?
46 to 49 months.
46,000.
46, okay.
So that's why our 48 doesn't mean anything.
Got trumped, but so we were 2,000 over the state highest
Correct.
bracket.
Yep.
So is it fair to think that we need to look at our town number moving forward for next year? Yeah.
Probably
And that's
because
kind of where this is going.
There's also an increase this year of social security, almost 9%,
Right.
8.7.
Right.
So I'm sure the state's gonna bump their rates up again.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to revisit the 48,000.
Thank you.
The state is not an absolute reflection of the social security. It considers the social security increase. But obviously, even at the higher brackets, people have other income other than just the social security.
Right, but for elderly, investments and stuff was probably not the factor this year. It was probably sheer inflation and what social security was given. Is it fair to think that? Okay, thank you.
That's okay, so 22, 23. So we haven't really looked at the cost of what it's gonna be next year based on current numbers then. The actual cost to our budget,
No,
we haven't looked at that
because
yet.
the mill rate has to be set.
Right.
A lot of work still.
It looks to be an estimate, or is that just the limit?
The thought of this would Paula.
The budget part?
Yeah.
That
That's for the
is,
current year, though.
that's
not
for the
future
current year.
22, 23. So one, oh, sorry. Start asking questions.
Yes. Yep. Questions?
Yeah, look, I probably more than anyone in here, except for John and Bob, have had a long history with this. When I joined the Board of Finance in 2016, the then chair, Bruce Cornwell, kind of did one of those things where they nominated the person who wasn't here to be part of the commission. And it was very educational, right? It's a great program. The thing that I always found was it's tremendously complex. And if I wasn't kind of thinking about it every day, I would constantly forget what the basics were. So I guess and this really is a fantastic program. To John's point, Bob mentioned it as well. This committee was together for 4 years. And we met every month and came up with a recommendation that was sent to the Board of Selectmen. I guess my first question is, John, you had mentioned that there was a need to go to Marty Lawler. I guess, why is that? That never had to be done in the past. That suggests to me something's being changed where we needed a legal opinion on something.
We wanted to make sure that we were not violating anything by using the higher level state bracket as the bracket for the program this year, as opposed to the town of Bethlehem, because the town of Bethlehem came with the state identifying a bracket that was higher. And he said no, that there was no requirement for any voting or any hearings on it or that, because we weren't changing anything in the ordinance. The state has always just come down with their recommendations for the brackets. And it's been accepted because the state dictates to all the towns what those brackets are.
Okay, so that's helpful, and that may help me bridge from my question to your response to my next question, which is, so I take it that the state limit is mandatory. It's not that we have a decision to make to go to the higher state level. The state mandates that our ordinance number that, again, I didn't bring my entire file, right? But my committee file was, yeah, you think, but it was maybe what, you'd mentioned 48,000 is what's in our ordinance now. The table is in there. So if I'm understanding this, Marty opined that state law supersedes our ordinance and therefore we have to go with the state law. And again, I think for this board's benefit, Bob was the chair of that. It was called the Elderly and Disabled Tax Abatement Committee, I think.
Right.
We put together 8, 9, 10.
6 or 8 different recommendations.
Right.
And they were presented to the Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Finance.
Board of Finance,
Back in
but it never got to the Board of Selectmen.
November 12th, 2019.
Some time ago. Those suggestions, I thought, made this program even better. And there was, there's always some concern about when there's a program of abatement nature that it's being targeted to and used by the folks who we want to be using this
Yeah,
program.
absolutely.
And I think what this committee did was come up with some ideas that were meant to address perhaps at the margin, folks who you may think probably didn't necessarily qualify for the program. Maybe they had lots of assets elsewhere. And that's important, right? I mean, we all want to keep our seniors in town. The trade-off is every dollar that is abated through this program is picked up by somebody else.
Sure.
And I remember telling Bob this constantly. I coached with somebody for many years who wasn't making a whole lot more than $49,000 for the
49, you're right. Yep,
9-1.
yep.
And he, 4 kids trying to make ends meet. It just seemed that we really should put some of those program suggestions in place to protect the integrity of this program. And to the extent that, our current chair finds it appropriate, he may want to bring it up with the Board of Selectmen, just to see if they want to think about it.
But for instance, one of the things was we recommended, of course, a living increase on the $48,000 bracket to accommodate for any social security increase that might have been. Now, back in those years, there really wasn't large increases.
Very
But
small,
The last
yeah.
couple of years, there's been 2 really big ones, and that would hurt, I think, some of the people in the program at that upper level where they would fall out because now all of a sudden social security is so much higher.
Again, I think that's a great example of how this package of 6 to 8 suggestions was really meant to be a holistic approach to strengthen the program.
Not just a number, but a whole package.
Yeah.
The other piece that I don't think we envisioned at the time was because it was a reevaluation year this year, so all the assessments have gone up. I don't think we, in our 2019 wisdom, saw an opportunity for real estate prices to go up to the degree that they did. And we certainly weren't anticipating the effect of Social Security, which had been some years 0%, had been running about 2%. And then suddenly would go 5, 9, and 8, 7, which is going to be a dramatic change over this year and next year in terms of Social Security.
So my last question,
Nope.
not to extend this too long.
There's no time limit here.
So Brad, in the current year, the program is absorbing about 640,585.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Right.
It could go up to that, but obviously when we set the mill rate, we have to assume full utilization.
Do you have any initial calculation? I think the ordinance says the amount in any one year could be no more than 1% of the budget. Do we have a sense for whether that amount is safe or whether we're breaching that amount?
The budget last year was what,
85.
411. So that'd be 855,000. So
You're approaching it.
Well, who sets the program limit as it's now? That's what I'm
Is it in our charter? Is that?
saying. So the program limit was in our charter,
Yes.
but if now that the state comes along and raises it, we'll just go with whatever the state program limit is based on what we project. Like I'm looking here, this is what the heat problem, there's $640,000 right now.
Yeah.
Right? Still available $108,000. So the question, I'm trying to figure out where that program limit came from.
And yeah, I believe it's an ordinance, a town ordinance,
Right.
98 something. That sets the limit.
But so that will be an issue now because the state,
We're getting
Yes.
close to get over that.
Well, that's.
So 1%.
But it still could be, just because the state dictates, I don't know if the program limit would still cap. Just because you qualify doesn't mean you necessarily get it if the,
true, like right now, people didn't get it, $180,000 worth, right?
Well, yeah.
It's still floating around.
but it's just because they didn't qualify for it.
Right.
But say everybody qualified for it, and there's a program limit, we'd have to then have Marty look at if the state doesn't put a cap on it, or if the state allows the local to put the cap on it, then the cap would still apply.
Okay.
Because the state, even though it tells you that you have to have one, my understanding is you still get to dictate some of the rules of it.
Well, John did.
Well, that's, I guess that's,
And
Yeah.
he wrote in the new numbers on the second page.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, what was your concern, that we were gonna run out of money because?
No, actually,
the-
we have extra money this year.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but no, I mean, it's, or about the new bracket, it's
Next
gonna
year,
make us run out.
well, next year's gonna make a higher number, but if the program limit is set by our
Yeah.
charter,
Charter.
it is, right?
It
And we
still
are gonna
talks
have
about
to-
1,200.
We are gonna have to adopt an ordinance next year.
Yes.
Because the program limit has been set by this. Now we have a new program limit by the state. Now we have something that's conflict with the state law. That's where I'm.
This says 1%. We're getting close to 1%.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
This is 1%. Okay.
and with my sensitivity is around kind of, footfalls that come back to haunt us. And I don't know, I believe it is often the case that attorneys answer the question that is asked of them, and not necessarily any other question.
That's fair.
And so I don't know if this is something, Paul, that you would follow up with Marion and you in connection with Brad, before you guys. Just to make sure we're all on side coming up in the next.
Correct.
Because
Yes,
we're
and
getting
that's what
closer to one.
we spoke with Marty about, is going forward.
And do you know, did he opine as to the 1% or just the annual limits?
No, there was never any discussion.
So that's- It would, seems to follow that if it's okay on one, it'd be okay on the other, but I can't get it done.
Paul, in your conversation, can you talk about that 1%? We're getting close to it. We have concerns about that. And maybe he can give us a recommendation.
Yes.
And we'll follow up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Bob, it's good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, definitely. You look good. I mean, I'm surprised. You look good.
Sleeping later.
And he doesn't have to come to these meetings.
Right.
Look at Brad is aging.
Right, Brad's definitely looking rough.
Getting here.
Brad looks worse every time I see the guy.
You know what, let's move on.
I've got 9-1 pushed to my phone. I'm ready. We're done, Brad. I'm sorry.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry, thank you. John, it's good to see you, John.
Bob, finish the meeting for me.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank you, Bob.
See you later.
All right, we're off here to Public Works. The Board of Selectmen had made a couple of recommendations on some equipment here to come out of CNR. I've had discussions with the acting first selectman, so we have a little bit of movement. So I know Bob's here to talk about it, so let's just break it up first. If you don't mind, we'll talk about obviously the cabin chassis. Bob?
Yeah, Eric's here also. so-
Oh, Eric, excellent, thank you.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
Good, whoever wants to start, Eric, if you want to go first, or Bobby, or?
Yeah, Eric can lead in and then, you know.
Yeah. I'll just give you the sort of the big picture, and then if you have any questions about the specifics, maybe Bob, you want to take that. So we've been looking at our capital plan, and specifically for vehicles, we're going to need to order 5, possibly more trucks in the next 12 months. So we're going to put those all into the capital plan. But we've been talking with Rich, and we met with the Board of Selectmen about what our priorities are. We need to get 3 dump trucks, which, and I know this wasn't included as part of the materials for this meeting, but we did include it for the Board of Selectmen. So if you want to see it, I can provide it to you. But basically, we had a list. It was just a list of all the vehicles we have and their ages. So if anyone's interested, you can follow up with me. But anyway, the point is that we're looking at replacing our 3 oldest dump trucks, and we the way Bob likes to build them, we use a Peterbilt chassis, and then the body and hydraulics are Pelletier. So in talking to the Board of Selectmen, what we decided at the last meeting was we're going to go ahead with one of these chassis. The thing there is a Sourcewell discount on the chassis. The thing that is a little bit strange to me, and I guess it's just the way things are now, is that we can't get an exact price until the thing is basically delivered, but we do know an approximate price, and that's the number that you see there. It's about 128,000. So that's the chassis. The loader is a little bit easier of a decision to make, because there is currently a 40% Sourcewell discount that we can take advantage of. So if you look in the attachments or the materials provided for this meeting, the full cost of that loader would be $382,000. With the discount, it'd be $241,000. So that's a huge savings. So I think that's the background. Did I miss anything, Bob?
No, I don't think so. As far as the Sourcewell discount stuff is working right now, the Peterbilt chassis in 2019, they got a Sourcewell contract that the chassis were 34% off. That changed year before last down to 22%, and now we're down to 15%. So some of the Sourcewell contracts, discounts are starting to, I think they're mostly starting to drop because they're having a hard time sourcing parts to assemble, whether it's a truck or whatever for delivery. And then obviously there's been, the increase in the cost to produce these things. So the loader's at 40% discount on Sourcewell. And that contract expires in May of this year. So, looking at how some of these other discounts have been drying up, I'm kind of like, is that contract going to come back in at 40%, or is it going to be substantially less? The only thing that makes me want to push on even further is there's a delivery period. Generally a loader is from orders like 90 days to delivery. Now John Deere's saying a full year of time frame to make delivery. So are they having issues, producing equipment and getting it out on the market and stuff like that? And will that cause that 40% discount all of a sudden to wash away and end up being, come June 1st, we wake up and that discount, it's not 40 anymore, it's 22 or 25 or something like that. And that's a lot of money. I mean, that's covering the price of that chassis almost in my book, So again, if you're not familiar, we buy off this Connecticut State TAS for administrative service. Sourcewell, which is for the state of Minnesota and the whole country to buy off of that. And then we also, federal government has GSA, which we also discount off of. And strangely enough, a lot of the John Deere equipment has come off of federal GSA for the discounts.
Bobby, we're gonna do the truck first, so
Sure.
let's not commingle the two of them a little bit right now. But again, this is a Peterbilt cabin chassis. I'm sorry, Dee, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I have a really naive question. I'm just not a truck expert and or a tractor expert. And I'm just kind of wondering, can someone describe what this is used for and kind of what it looks like?
Sure. You see our bigger dump trucks plowing the roads during the winter time.
Yeah.
That's one of those. It's we have small low boys and then the bigger trucks with the bigger plows on. The Peterbilt.
Oh wait, this is a dump truck? This is a John Deere dump truck?
It's a Peterbilt.
And Dee,
I'm sorry.
and that's why Bobby's got a couple different pieces of equipment and he started mingling them together, and that's why I kind of stopped him. We're talking about a Peterbilt cabin chassis. And then
Okay.
there's gonna be another ask for the body, if you remember, the body and the hydraulics are kind of separate, but he needs to get approval for a cab and chassis right now. And then there'll be another ask for the equipment to go on the chassis to make it a dump truck. So
Okay, and that's different from the John Deere ask, is that
Yes.
correct?
John
okay.
Deere's gonna be next, right?
Thank you.
So again, it's a cab and chassis.
Yeah, it's Peterbilt cab and chassis, Class 8 dump truck. You know, and then once we receive that, now Peterbilt across Carolina trucks is somewhere in like the 12,000 deep of orders, right? So they don't want to price anything until it's, you know, either right pre-production or at production. For whatever reasons, and I know there's been increases in the cost of the chassis, some of the different chassis models lately. So, you know, they're kind of hesitant. You know, as soon as I know a price, I'll certainly shoot that back to everybody.
Of course.
You know.
And can you just speak of what it's replacing? You know, you and I had a conversation
Yeah,
about the
yeah, so-
hours and
So
if
this
we had a
truck is
private
gonna
contractor.
Yeah, so this truck is going to replace a 2000 Sterling dump truck that we have. It's about 70,000 miles on it. Like again, it's a 2000 truck. It's old. The body's in very poor condition on it, and I really don't want to spend, you know, that $30,000 in that area for a new body to try to get it through the next winter. You know, if we don't get this truck, you know, I mean, I think that's, you know, throwing bad money to good, kind of, you know, in my opinion. You know, but still, at the end of the day, you got a 2000 truck, your 2000 truck with a new body on it, and you'll never get that money out of it, you know, as a trade-in or what have you. So, you know, but we definitely need to upgrade the fleet. A lot of some of the, like the Sterling trucks were bought out by Freightliner in like 2010, and they had a deal with them, had to make parts for 5 years. Now I still have 3 Sterling trucks in service, and parts are getting a little iffy to get, you know, the Sterling specific parts. So that's also become a problem too.
Just a quick question. I believe in the cap plan, I see the 2000 truck. There's also a 2002. Is that as bad a condition? In the cap plan, it's in the same year.
We that one's getting kind of iffy. We put a new floor on the bottom inside the dump body, and new steel floor in it, you know. But like I said, I really, you know, at this point, you know, I need to get that chassis in for that to get that 2000 truck replaced. And the other one, yeah, I mean, it's you know, back to, you know, what's available for parts. You know, the big fear is something breaks on one of those trucks and I can't get the part for it. It's off the road either semi-permanently or permanently. You know, I have the Peterbilt chassis we're waiting on now is going to replace a 27-year-old Ford LA1000. Truck's 27 years old.
Just so the board knows, the Board of Finance approved March 9th, 2021, so almost 3 years ago, a plow truck that we've not yet received. Well, not even the whole truck, cab and chassis. So,
Yeah, exactly.
But then just 3 weeks ago, we approved 82,000 to upfit that cabin chassis.
No, that was for 550 or something.
yeah, that was for 2 550s.
Can I ask a question with Bob? Sure. So I think Eric started his presentation saying the need is 3. Is that for to cover the 2000, the 2002,
Mhm.
and then obviously the next oldest one?
Yeah, it's 06, you know.
Yeah,
So the
that's
capital
correct.
Plan is to replace
So I think,
3.
yeah, so without, you know, my thought is simply because of the number of trucks that are on order at you know, Peterbilt, and every manufacturer's in the same boat pretty much, right? I wanted to get myself in line for those other 2 chassis, because I don't, you know, doesn't see that, you know, that number decreasing very much as they, you know, try to fulfill orders. And my intention was, you know, just a letter of intent to Peterbilt, a letter of intent to purchase Peterbilt. You know, and I don't know how the money thing works, you know, if you have, the town has to put the money off to the side someplace to make that commitment, or whatever, but, you know, a letter of intent to get us in line for those other 2 trucks within the next couple of years, you know, a year or 2.
Okay, so Eric started the presentation saying his want was 3 in the
Yeah.
near future for capital items.
Correct.
With Brad saying that we didn't receive one, those 4 vehicles get us to what? Driving a 2008?
2008, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that'll be our oldest truck when the 4, we
Right.
accomplish them
Correct.
in 10 more years.
Correct.
Did you get the 10 years? You know what, let's just make it 12 years.
So I want to get this right. We still have 1 on order we have never received.
Yes,
dump
one
truck.
of the
Full-size
dump
truck.
plow trucks, yeah.
Full-size plow truck, which we have now. And that was going to be an addition for a total of 4?
No,
You had
that's only
3.
to replace the 27-year-old Ford.
Yeah,
That's
Okay.
already been passed the list.
It's not even on our list
It's not on the
anymore,
list anymore.
because we bought it, but we haven't gotten it or paid for it yet.
so Dan, they still need
Yeah.
3 to be the want list, right?
Right, for a total of 4. The one that we're waiting on, and 3 more to replace. Okay,
Gotcha.
gotcha.
All right, but Nick, you had discussions with the acting first selectman on this particular item?
Again, yeah, the generator went better, but we did have discussion. So I'd make a motion that we send this back to the Board of Selectmen to consider it with ARPA money for the 128,810 for the cabin chassis. Do I have a
Do
second?
we need a motion then, or we just don't act on it?
No, we need a motion for it. Yep. So I made a motion to send it back to the Board of Selectmen. Do I have a second?
Second,
So any other discussion on this cabin chassis, full-size cabin chassis?
So can we just?
Yeah,
make a
discuss my
comment?
motion.
So I think the Board of Finance, what I'm hearing through our question is, it's important and we need the vehicle. We're just asking the selectmen to spend some of the COVID money instead of it coming out of a different account.
And for the record, it's a 23-year-old truck. I definitely support a
Right,
new
that's,
truck.
I just want that to be the flavor of this
Oh, yeah,
discussion.
right, yep.
Well, I would just kind of repeating what John was saying, but it's slightly.
But you could probably
More
do a better
elegant.
job.
No,
More
certainly
elegant.
not. Right, I think it's Bob's responsibility to tell us what he needs, and then it's our
How to
responsibility.
figure out how to
pay
pay for it, right?
And
Yeah.
you probably kind of figured out from my questions, I'm starting to get a little concerned with what's in capital now recurring.
I agree.
You know, that we'd set up a number of years ago to avoid our practice of buying things on the credit card.
And reacting, right?
And I just would like us as a board, again, Bob, this has nothing to do with you. You do your
Yeah, no, I
job,
agree
which
with
is
you.
tell us what you need. And then we, I think, need to figure out how to, with the board of selectmen, how to optimize not only what we're
Whatever
buying,
funds we have,
but our
right.
risk management for the stuff we don't know is gonna break.
Right, because the balance is down to $1 million, round numbers.
And that's before what looks to be like almost another 500.
Well, yeah,
Allocated is $1 million and
Unallocated is a little bit over 1 million.
Yep.
This 219 isn't on, the 240 is not on.
well, because this is only what's been approved by the Board of Selectmen and approved by the Board of Finance. Yeah, you're just going through the outstanding capital list.
And when I go down the list, and this is maybe too expansive, sorry, Bob, for dragging.
There's not enough money.
Well, there's some other things on this list that have been here for a while that we've told are imminent, right? This, if I have to think about this highway garage roof one more time, my eyes are gonna cross, right? But we were told a heavy snowstorm and that's 240, that's another.
But isn't that money allocated already? I thought the improvements for the highway garage were already allocated.
So there is some money that was capital for
There was some,
the highway, capital non-recurring. There's $65,000 for the highway sand shed repairs,
Oh,
which I believe, and I know Eric's on, they're looking at now. But there was capital money back when we used to do capital like through the budget process. Approved for that, and they're doing some studies now to get some better pricing on what's needed for that project.
And remember, when Brad says we did it through the budget process, that was we're borrowing money to pay for it. That's how we got to the 10.5 million of short-term debt that was hanging out there like a credit card. I believe that this board doesn't want to plan
We are
the
not
town in
bonding.
that situation.
and Bob, to your point or to your message, I had that conversation with Nick when the agenda came out and I saw all these items. I'm like, wait a minute, we only have this. And how do we categorize the importance of what's on that capital list that you started many years ago?
And I know there's an election coming up, but Richie and I had a conversation today to get with the comptroller and try to categorize this a little bit more. You know what I mean? It's just more of a wish list. You know, I like to have a rating on there, what's more important and, you know, some sort of, you know, direction. To make a list of a bunch of wants is just not an easy thing. Listening
Point,
to,
128,000 for a cabin chassis is exactly this reason why Nick went to the selectmen and said, hey, listen to me, there's some other funds. Can we fund some of these important things for the town other ways, but grab it from the CNR all the time? Because it seems like see, everybody knows what CNR is now.
There's, right, they know the name, but there's almost no money in there, so definitely. Okay. Again, I totally support it. There's definitely a need. And, you know, I think, Bobby, you're getting that. We're just arguing about how we're gonna pay for it here, so.
So I think we didn't vote on it, right? It was
Not
a
yet.
vote to
Motion,
vote,
we have
yeah.
it seconded.
And we're
now-
discussing, right, exactly. Yep, so are you good? Everybody good about the cabin chassis of sending it back to the Board of Selectmen?
For consideration of funding it a different way. That was your motion, right?
For COVID money?
Yep.
Exactly. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
These good? Okay, so let the record show it's unanimous. We'll put it back.
Can I-
Yes.
Hey, Nick, this is Eric. Sorry to, I hope I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but in terms of getting a letter of intent that Bob was requesting that he believes will help get us in line for those 3 chassis. And please, someone correct me if I'm out of line with whatever the procedure is, but is that something that the Board of Finance could support or would need to support?
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
So I don't see how we can give a letter of intent to buy it without allocating funds towards it.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's my stance on it.
Eric, we had a conversation today. You know, you waited 23 years. I just need 2 or 3 more weeks.
He's talking about buying more than just one.
Oh, okay.
He's
No,
talking about
no.
getting in
Yeah.
line with the other ones.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
And I understand it's a long time. We definitely have to allocate money and we're
So
not there yet.
my suggestion would be, we should look at, traditionally, when capital non-recurring was $225,000, we wouldn't spend much of that, wouldn't spend much of it till the end of the year until you knew you didn't have an emergency. What might make sense is come May, what's in capital non-recurring before the new 650 comes on. Maybe we look at what's the best use of not all of that, but say there's 500,000 left. Maybe you take 400,000. So you leave 100,000 for the last month plus your new money or whenever we have an approved budget. That would be the time to act on non-emergency kind of things and bring this down a little bit further. If you remember, this CNR account ballooned during COVID, which was smart by the Board of Finance. There was very little proof from capital because we didn't know what was gonna happen.
I thought the sky was falling.
Smart planning.
Yep.
So, and maybe it makes sense, but it's too early for that. I think now we gotta handle stuff that we need, like to your point, like, let's get the loader ordered before it costs us more. But the loader alone is gonna bring us down to 800.
Exactly. That's
You
what's gotta be
know,
nervous.
something else pops up in a month from now, that's 200,000, you're down to, you know,
Sure, some boiler, elevator, you're
Yeah.
talking big numbers. Right?
so.
Eric, we understand
fine.
what, and we
Yeah.
understand the delay. And, you know, for 3 years waiting for a cabin chassis is kind of ridiculous and it's not even fit up yet. You know what I mean?
No,
So
right, we
you're
haven't
talking
done
another
it.
6 months to get it built, at least
Right.
6 months, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so we hear you, just give us a little bit of time on this, all right? It's kind of a weird time of year and, you know, with stuff coming
Understood.
up.
But I'm not sure the Board of Finance is gonna give a letter saying, hey,
No,
we're
no.
all in on 3.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think
But
we
it
could
would be a
anyway
letter, it
without
would be one
allocating
at a
the money.
We can't just send a letter and not sign a check.
Right, I don't want Eric to think, once, you know, in 3 weeks, we could think about a letter for 3 trucks.
No,
Yeah.
no, but again, just let us work on it and we understand the need, okay?
Okay,
All right,
thanks.
so again, the motion was passed to send that back as reconsidered for COVID. The next thing, again, Dee, if you want to talk about the John Deere loader. You want to add anything? It's got 4 tires. No.
I'd like to listen to some things about the John Deere loader.
Here it comes.
Okay, thank you.
Bobby, why don't you, yeah, why don't you, yeah,
This is where-
Dee
this is
doesn't
where
want,
you
she wants
dazzle
to
Dee.
hear about it.
So yeah, so we were replacing a 1992 John Deere loader, 15,000 hours on it. So that 15,000 hours operating time on that machine puts that machine basically at the end of its life. You know, for example, it's a car with, I don't know, 250, 300,000 miles on it kind of thing. And again, you know, we've had to spend a little bit of money on that loader recently. And I really don't want to pour much more money into that thing and, you know, get this thing replaced. And I think it's, you know, the loader we replaced right now is an exact copy of the one of the newer loader we have from 2012, right? It's the same exact machine, and I think, you know, the discount there with a multiple of the age and hours on the old machine, it's probably a really good time to replace that machine.
Yeah, so the opportunity now is a 40% discount, which I believe extends until April, if I'm not mistaken, Bob. So that's a savings of over 140,000, bringing the total to 241,000, more or less, for that loader.
So guys, just a basic question. And again, I'm sorry, I'm not versed in this, but like, what do we use that for? What does that do?
Sure, the loaders we use to load trucks in the wintertime. One loader stays in the garage to load trucks during the summertime during construction season, and the other loader's out on the road on road jobs, so on and so forth. The loaders are used to mix our sand and salt in the winter. You know, there are multiple things that we use the loader for.
Primary
So
loan.
Just so I know when I see it on the street, does it look like a truck or it looks like a tractor?
It's like a tractor. All the,
It's like a tractor.
all the tires are the same size on it.
Big
It's got a
bucket in the
on
front.
the front.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You also use your loaders when there's too much snow downtown, right?
Yeah, the loaders, multi-purpose thing. We use it for snow removal downtown, stacking snow in parking lots during the winter time, stuff like that.
And it looks like this one. And Dee, by the way, thank you, because I had all of those questions too, but I wasn't brave enough to ask.
Yeah, well, Bob being a male, he didn't want to ask a question.
A big beard.
And we're pulling this forward in the capital plan.
So yes, it's been on the capital plan for 2024. And it's getting pulled forward because of the discount and some of the age of it.
Yeah, again, that detail, that discount disappears,
It makes sense, but I'm just curious why in an era of long waits and more demand than supply, why does one get a 40% discount that's extended for 5 months?
It's an older contract. And for some reason, John Deere hasn't gone in and asked to change the discount on it. Most of the truck manufacturers actually have, which I was really surprised, And I would have to guess after May, that's just speculation of me saying, all right, that discount is going to change, but that's a substantial outcome. That's, I'll just make an example. If you look at a used machine, like say, all right, can you go buy a used machine, right? I was looking through Machinery Trader last week, and it was the same exact model loader. I think it was a 2020, and they had 2,000 hours on it, and they wanted $250,000 for it on sale, right? So that's a really good deal. And B, a loader coming in, whether it's on return, auction, rent, or whatever, you don't know who's operating in it. And even a machine with say 500 hours on it could have a ton of problems, expensive problems with it. And that's why I prefer to purchase when it's new, versus, for example, the grader, what the grader used, right? Grader operates an artist, so the machine that doesn't generally get abused. So I didn't have an issue with that.
Bob, I appreciate the invoice here, and I know you didn't spec out Bluetooth and thing, did you?
No, that's
Comes in it.
that's a package. that
That's
everything
free?
comes with.
Okay.
Dick, I'm still on a flip phone, right?
Yes, you're right. You don't even know what Bluetooth is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm sorry. But you do know what tires are. How come there's a $14,000 change in tires? Is this an over-road tire or something?
No, that's a cheap, that's, for some reason, oddly enough, we're buying stuff off of these Sourcewell, G3, whatever. With this loader, I have to buy the engine separately. The tires, bucket's kind of normal, right? If I have to buy the engine, the tires, and the bucket, right? So, yeah, I can't explain that.
So can you buy it without a motor?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Some of it is when they do these big bids,
Right.
they list them all as options.
You're
So
taking
you
the
can
certain
pick
size
which piece
motor.
you want.
When we bought our excavator up at GSA, all it was the house and the tracks, right? I had to buy the boom, the stick, the bucket.
So it's one of those things.
Right. So when it comes to tires, when we're buying either a loader or trucks or whatever, we put on the absolutely cheapest set of tires that they sell, right? Because I can buy tires way cheaper than anybody can supply it for. So, yeah, and those tires are obviously very expensive, right? And that's the cheapest thing there is available.
But it just happened to be the style tire and they're putting it on the tractor,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, they're just type of tires.
And there's some value to the old one if we get it out in a trade-in value or something?
I think so. I think, I'm not sure I still have to have somebody come up from, and take a look at it. I'm thinking, $10,000. I was originally thinking $20,000, but, you know, I got.
You get to 5, you might sell
I
it.
got put in my, yeah, I mean, I got put in my place a couple times, thinking, you know.
Shooting too high.
Yeah, I mean, when we traded our sweeper, right, I thought the sweepers were 25 grand, right? So the sales guy says, yeah, he says, Meekum's having an auction at the casino next weekend, why don't you try to run it through the Meekum car? auction?
Wax it up a little bit.
25 grand."
He's trying
You
to
know,
find
blah, blah, blah. So we didn't get, you know, I'm thinking like 10 or someplace in there, you know. I'm hoping. Obviously, they'll.
Okay. So we don't have a motion yet for the loader, so
So I would love to make a motion that we not exceed $241,190 for the purpose of buying a new loader and take it out of the CNR account.
okay, do we have a second? Bob will second it. All right, any other discussion on this, on the loader itself? All in favor? Aye. Aye. D. Let the record show it's unanimous on the loader. Okay, thank you. So you can order that and see it next year. Right.
15 minutes.
Hey, Bob, and then there was 700.
That was a big blow. All right. So we're down to the generator for the highway department. Bob, I would make I don't know how I want this. I'd make a motion that we send this back to the Board of Selectmen in consideration of the COVID money, the ARPA money. So that's my motion. Do I have a second on that? And then we will have a discussion on it. And Dan seconded it. You want to just talk about how old the other one
Sure.
is and emergency services?
Yeah, I mean, you know, so our highway garage, we have a standby generator down there. You know, powers our building, it also powers the gas pumps, you know, for all, you know, PD, fire department, whoever, blah, 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 transfer station. It does that kind of stuff, provides emergency power. So the generator's an owning unit, it's around 35 years old, someplace right in there. Again, it's an issue getting parts for the generator side of that. You know, it has a small diesel engine on it, which, you know, that has, you know, it's been a good unit, it's got a couple thousand hours on it. I mean, it's got a fair amount of runtime on it. But the owning side, the generation side of it is what we're concerned about. And that's coming from our generator service person saying, you know, I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to get this or that. You know, it's 35 years old, you know, I mean, I just. Like I said, someplace right here, because I'll tell you, you know, we had built the building ourselves around it and we bought the lumber at Cashway and Brookfield. How long ago was that?
When did you start sounding like your father?
I don't know.
All right, so again, I think it's important. I did have a conversation with Richie, and he definitely agrees that it should come out of COVID money, so I don't think there's any.
I think that's a great use of COVID.
Oh, my God, definitely.
And by the way, that's on 32% discount.
36.
Sorry, Eric.
So we're gonna buy an extra one for the garage or something, or?
Yeah, so that's also a source of discount.
Definitely, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion, and seconded to send this back for ARPA money, so any other discussion?
Just quick question.
Yes.
Brad, where is that on the capital? plan?
I don't know if that was. Eric, do you know if that was on the capital plan?
I don't think it was.
Right here. So under
No,
building,
maybe it was.
50 kilowatt generator, public works garage.
Yeah.
The fourth one down,
Oh, there you go.
$14,000.
Was that ink still wet, Bob, in that section?
There's a lot of fraudulent stuff going on.
I like to print things nice and big.
Oh, for the old guys. I did see that on our building meetings.
Yeah, it is there.
Okay, all right,
Let's
any
get
other
a vote on
discussion?
that, yeah.
Yep, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show unanimous. We're doing good. Doing good. I think, oh, okay, we have Brad's report. He did come all the way out.
I don't know, I took a lot of abuse earlier.
And because we love you.
I thought it was constructive. Bob.
That was more love than abuse. I'm like, really sensitive.
All right.
So Brad, hey Brad, can I just ask before you get started on the report? So after having bought the big green tractor,
Yellow.
what is the capital non-recurring at now?
So the unallocated balance was 1,051,000 and some change. And taking out the 241 will be at $810,000 in unallocated.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Brad.
If you look on E1 for the controller's report, collection rate, prior year 63.14, this year 62.37. Prior years were always around that 61%. So we're looking good for collection rate. We talked last week about the intergovernmental revenues, that money that we got from the state that we didn't think we were gonna get, but we said, okay, thank you. So that's why that account is already almost $400,000 over what we budgeted. Revenue wise, everything else looks good to me for where we've been at. Like equal cost sharing, which we get is the ECS money for the state from the education. They always send it later. That's why even though it's halfway through the year, we're only at 25%. Just the timing of when the state sends that money. If you look over at expenses, we're in really good shape so far. You know, it's still the same concerns that we've had with utilities. We do have all of our utilities locked in at this point. I know, Bob, you weren't at the last meeting, but we did lock in before the last meeting, we locked in gasoline, diesel, and fuel oil. Fuel oil doesn't affect the general fund at all. It just, the town buildings are completely off fuel oil. It's all water and sewer buildings that are still on fuel oil. Pump stations, Eureka, but we did lock it in. Unfortunately, most of the things that we've locked in are 2 to 3 times what they were previously locked in at. But we did lock in just to get some stability in there, especially with the natural gas. Last year, this time we got hammered because the price per therm spiked. And even though we locked in this year at 1.8 or so per therm, instead of being locked at 0.65, I think it went up to almost 3 at one point the prior year. So that's going to be a scary number when we look at our 24 budget for utilities. Where we are lucky, because I've talked to other town finance directors, Reading actually reached out to me today to talk about electricity. We're locked in for electricity for the next 2.5, 3 years. So at some point, we're going to get hit because when you lock in for 5 years, you do great for 5 years, but then you got to get back up to market at some point. So we will take a hit then, but at this point, because everything else is spiking on us, we are lucky that we have some stability in the utility account because of that. So we're getting hammered, but not as bad as we could. But at least now we're locked in for most things for at least the next, at this point, like 11 months left. And when it comes to some of those things, we will look at if the price dips. A lot of times you can tack on to your contracts and add another year. So we will be monitoring that too. So.
What, do you happen to know what we're locked in at for our, was there a supplier charge?
I don't offhand.
Just curious. If that's-
Yeah.
Yeah, the supplier charge.
I think the
Don't have
supplier
to.
charge is,
That's one when
I
you.
don't think
lock
you
in.
can lock it in to a certain degree with it.
Yeah, it's a.
Oh, no, the supply charge,
it's
it's
a
a delivery charge you
delivery, yeah.
can't. They knew
Supplier
one of
you
them
can't.
is Eversource has to go through Pura.
Right.
I think
Well,
that's,
Eversource is, that's one that went up to like 20 something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the supplier we're locked in at, I don't know offhand what it is. I know it felt like we got hit hard when we locked in because we were at like 0.06, the previous contract, and when it
Yeah.
jumped to rough numbers 0.08, we're like, oh, this is ridiculous, but we locked in, and now we're thrilled that we're locked in.
Yeah, so you think you're down that low then still?
Yeah, it's under 10,
Great, that's awesome.
so
Because the rates out there now are about 15 cents. the
yeah,
best rates.
like I just locked in my home for 15, and that was a good price compared to what.
Thank you.
So that's utilities.
Brad,
Yeah.
before the utilities. So for electricity, we're locked in through 27, 28.
No, we signed a 5-year agreement 2.5 years ago. So we have like 2.5 years left on it, 2.5, 3 years left on it. So easily, I think it's ends in the end of 25,
Calendar or fiscal.
I think calendar.
Okay.
Sometime in that time frame.
And then what are the lock-ins for the other
I'd have to pull them up. I think
ballpark through the rest of this year? Fiscal?
they were, yeah, so they were pretty much calendar year because we locked in into, I think, December, early December for 12 months.
So we can probably expect jumps in those.
Yeah,
The follow.
so, but
Yeah.
again, because we're gonna monitor it, we don't really necessarily want to tack on the second year now, because that was an option to buy 2 years out. And normally when you buy out more, you see a nice dip in it, because, I think the second year might have been a little bit more. So, but now that we locked in the year, now we can monitor it. And hopefully if we time it right and get a nice little dip in there, we'll lock in the second year and either hopefully we're kicking ourselves that we locked in too high, but
So I see utilities, right, for the entire year appropriated about 2.6. End of December, we're halfway through the year and we're kind of about,
yeah, but we haven't bought most of our natural gas yet.
I was okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the
So
school
we-
systems in January and February is probably, those 2 months is probably a third of our natural gas for the whole year.
so if we extend out through the remainder of the fiscal year, the next 6 months, under the current contracts and historic usage.
Yeah.
The 1.4 is not enough.
There will be, probably not. I don't think it'll be, we did build in some uncertainty last year, but not enough. Because, if Russia and Ukraine hadn't gone on as long, we were kind of thinking that we were gonna come back down some. And this doesn't factor in, we do allocate some stuff at year end to water and sewer.
Right.
So we're gonna be over, and my guess right now is a couple 100,000. But I think in 22, we were over 400,000 in it.
But not catastrophic, maybe
No.
over, but okay. And the intergovernmental 470. How much of that was the one-time payment that was a surprise? Is that the 282?
That's, the 282 was the budget. So the 730 is what we've received in. I think that was 400,000 or so.
So that's 330,000 to the good.
When we had that conversation
Keep
earlier.
picking.
Well, I'm
Keep
just
picking the
thinking
apples.
ahead, right? If
No, I
we-
totally.
Historically, we've sometimes taken the overage of tax revenue over expenses at the end of the year and put it in the capital non-recurring.
And there may be some on the highway department, not spending all the overtime. There's other areas to pick up money.
No, I was ready to ask the exact same question with that, because I was wondering,
The other
Oh,
thing-
yeah, no.
but also with what we were talking earlier about the tax abatement. We're $180,000 short of where we thought that was gonna be. Is that money that could be out there down the line? We can,
Yeah, it would fall out to the fund balance.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but now that we have an updated fund balance
We have
policy,
a
We could
policy,
use the
we can
money
at
to
the
use
end of
it
the
to
year, we
18%.
can decide what to do with it.
Right.
The other thing which I forgot to mention during talking about the revenue, if you look at use of money, interest through 6 months, we're at
We're not gonna-
207
yeah.
of the 450. And when we made this budget, we figured the 450 wasn't gonna be anywhere near it. And the last 2 months
Oh, it's picked up.
is half of the 200. So
Okay.
I think November was like $55,000 in interest. So revenue, knock on wood, is looking really good. Expenses, other than utilities, is looking pretty good, but it's something we're monitoring.
Thank God the revenue's there, because if the expenses are up and you don't have the revenue, we're in trouble.
Anything else for Brad? Someone like to make a
I make a
motion?
motion, we accept Brad's report, sir.
Do I have a second? I'll be a second. Any other discussion? On Brad's report. D, you're good? Excellent. I'll let the record show. Unanimous? Everybody in favor?
Aye.
The record show unanimous. Thank you, Brad. I would accept the motion.
Make a motion for adjourn.
A second? Bobby Joe seconded for the record. Thank you, Brad. Thanks for showing up tonight. really. You were engaged. You were engaged.
Showing up is 80% of the time.
All in favor, let the record show unanimous. Thank you, Dave.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year. Dave.